This week on the SEO Weekly, I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. Yes, that's right. The Godfather of AI leaves Google. Little controversy. He's a little concerned about the future. We're going to dive into that. Plus, the state of search. Semrush drops some amazing insights. We're talking volatility. We're talking click-through rate. We're talking all the updates. What happened last year in SEO? And I had a very fascinating conversation with none other than Marianne Sweeny, talking all about how SEOs should be using AI chatbots and LLMs. Let's get to the news. Welcome back to the SEO Weekly, where queries are weird, advice is controversial, and everything depends. I'm your host, Garrett Sussman of iPullRank, and every week I cover everything going on in the world of SEO. We're talking Google updates, blog posts, webinars, podcasts, tools, SEO Twitter, SEO community, you name it, I'm on it. If you're into this stuff, please subscribe to the channel, give us a like, leave us a comment, share on the socials. I genuinely appreciate it. But you know what? There's some really good stuff to cover this week, so let's dive in. So canonicals are something that confuse a lot of SEOs, basically designating which is the primary page that should be indexed on Google, the canonical for variations. Now, this issue comes up a lot with syndicated content, and Jono Anderson pointed out an update to Google search documents that doesn't make a ton of sense. Basically, you'd want to typically use a cross-site canonical pointing to the main original story, but now they updated the recommendations to no index a publisher's site, which a lot of publishers just aren't going to do. Criticisms from the SEO community in response to this is that why can't Google figure out what the canonical is when you're syndicating content? It always is this interesting debate of whether or not it's worth it ultimately to syndicate, and this just confuses the issue further. So we'll see how this plays out, but Jono brings up a good point and highlights how this is problematic for Google. There was another great Google search team office hours where John and Dewey and Martin and Gary all were answering questions from the community, lots of interesting ones. Some ones that came up, none of this is like massively new, but like, what do you do if you have a ton of spam links that are pointing to your site? What do you do if you have a redesign? How do you get your traffic back up? To which John had that interesting question of like, if it's declining over time, it might not be a technical issue. You need to actually look at the changing search intent around you and how that might impact the content on your site and what they're looking for, adjust accordingly. That said, it's always good to kind of take these office hours with a grain of salt, but at the same time, listen to what they're saying, where they're pointing to in the documentation, and just some of their advice, because these guys generally know what they're talking about. This Wednesday, the big Google I/O Summit, a whole bunch of different talks across everything Google, including SEO, search, mobile, and AI. I'm super excited. In the past, they've released a lot of information about some of like their e-commerce, Google Lens things that they were rolling out. And it's hard not to anticipate that they'll give us some insight into generative AI, maybe Project Magi. You can sign up. It's a free event. And then I'm super excited because I will be interviewing Barry Schwartz of Search Engine Roundtable, Mr. SEO himself, to get his kind of take on everything that we learn on Google I/O. So that'll be on the Rankable podcast the following week. But check it out. Should be an excellent event. It's always fascinating to see what's coming through the pipe when it comes to Google. So super interesting story that started last week. Jeffrey Hinton, considered the godfather of AI, has been working on it since the 70s, has been an integral part to building some of these transformer models that ChatGPT and Google Bard are based on, worked for Google. And as of last month, he actually resigned from Google, talked to Sundar Pichai, for the purpose to be able to speak out against the risks and dangers of AI and not have to worry about his relationship with Google and disparaging the company. Now, there's a fascinating article by Cade Metz, kind of in the New York Times, writing all about this story. Jeffrey Hinton had to, explain that the implication that he was saying he quit so he could disparage Google was not the case. He just wanted to speak out against AI. It's the reason that he didn't sign that Sciences of Life petition to halt AI. Who knows if he would have signed it at all. But basically, his fears are that the technology is advancing rapidly, that there are always potentially bad actors who could use it and cause harm. And that's the last thing that he wanted. It's why he never took money from the Pentagon. He never wanted AI to be used in war. It's an interesting story, and it makes sense because it's really this unknown. We can't predict how quickly this technology will advance. And if it's being rolled out, not haphazardly, but maybe too fast for commercial and capitalist profits, then that's potentially risky. Now, Jeff Dean, the head of AI over at Google, said that they handle everything responsibly, but obviously they're moving faster because of the threat of OpenAI and ChatGPT. It's going to be interesting to see how this story plays out, but it's a very real concern. If the internet is flooded with deep fakes and technology that can, perform malicious, manipulative behavior, things can get really bad really quickly. Hopefully that's not the case. Why not be cautiously optimistic? If you're curious about all of this stuff, had a awesome interview on Rankable with Marianne Sweeny. We talked all about, her perspective on how SEO should be using LLMs and chatbots. Actually, she had a really interesting take about that. Take it away, Marianne.
I think that they are going to become more prominent in the SERPs, meaning that their use will become more prominent in the availability to everyone writ large. That as we all start using them, they will become better and more precise because they operate on a feedback loop, a human behavior input feedback loop. That I will continue to laugh uproariously at terms like prompt engineers because prompts are queries. Prompts are just very long queries put into the box. And the difference is that the chatbot is predicting and giving an answer that's based on having analyzed the entire web. Mm-hmm. And the regular SERPs is giving us an answer that is drawn from a corpus of pages that are deemed to be relevant to what we want. So it will be very interesting. I live in hope that SEO will become more interested in machine learning beyond just the odd ML for SEO. We need to go a little deeper than that. And if I never hear again that you have to write a certain amount of words on a topic in order to rank for it, I will die a happy woman on the spot.
So you can watch the whole rest of that episode on the Rankable podcast. It is in the show description notes. Check it out. Fascinating person, and she is an academic professor, teaches all about machine learning. So if you have any questions, definitely reach out to Marianne. She's always happy to talk through it. A few weeks ago on the SEO Weekly, we covered the fact that Italy was actually banning or temporarily suspending ChatGPT for data privacy concerns. Now, last week, about 10 days ago, they remove the suspension, let ChatGPT back into Italy, but it does raise some interesting questions going forward because the future of AI and a lot of these search engines are very much tied to personalization. And in order to get a personalized experience, data privacy is going to not cease to exist, but you really have to give up a lot of your data. So it's going to be interesting to see in places like the EU where you voluntarily are participating in having your data exposed, how much participation there will be. Like, how important is it culturally to say, no, I'm going to abstain from this technology because I don't want to be a part of it, as well as the way the companies interact with allowing these large language models to train on their websites, on their data. Will more people start pulling themselves away from it? We are potentially going to see a lot more smaller large language models that are fine-tuned to specific companies on sets of documents that are owned. Think about Getty or Adobe eventually doing things like that. Adobe is with their image generation. Anyway, data privacy is going to continue to be a major point of discussion when it comes to generative AI, chatbots, and LLMs. What do you think? So awesome article last week on the Wix blog by Adriana Stein talking all about, can AI generated content work for e-commerce? What I like about this article is she gives examples. She breaks down that it's not just about, automating and publishing raw AI generated content, how to enhance it with human centric content and make sure it's accurate, make sure that your prompt is specific and you have all the key information in there. We actually at iPullRank had a lot of success with AI generated content on product level category pages in the past, back when we were doing like GPT-2. So it's definitely possible to be useful in SEO, and Google doesn't care if you use AI generated content as long as it's helpful. It doesn't matter. And honestly, I don't think they can detect it. There are too many false positives anyway, even if they said. So I say go ahead. Just make sure that you invest editing in the AI generative content and don't just publish that raw crap. Great article by Adriana. Listen, the SEO Weekly, it's an SEO show, right? But like we've been talking about generative AI and all these tools nonstop because it impacts search and some of it's kind of irrelevant, but it's so hard not to cover some of it. So Karim pointed out that they are on the Verge, and some people already have access to the plugin, this code interpreter for ChatGPT. And this is next step because they've been talking about adding multimodal, different images and videos and audio, and text all through the output. But now they're taking code where you can upload files and download files and have ChatGPT do some really badass stuff. For instance, and this is, communication and prompts are going to be key, but taking a data set and being able to create a visual chart based on exactly what you're looking for, doing all sorts of code interpretation, building websites. The potential is astronomical, and we are at ground zero for this type of tool. I can only imagine how much better it'll get. I can't wait to get my hands on it. Give me access to those plugins, ChatGPT, please. I'm a subscriber since I saw her face. Anyway, very cool. Can't wait to try it out. If you have it, let me know what you're building in the comments. Super cool. Okay, so I run a podcast, right? And I'm not going to lie, I'm checking out for ego-stroking reasons whether or not Rankable is considered the best SEO podcast. So a few months ago, I was writing a blurb for Morty Oberstein at Wix all about how, podcast SEO and looking up best SEO podcast, and I saw this featured snippet drop down where you would see all these best podcasts, and then you click on one, it drops down and it would give you little information about it. It would list the top lists of where it was mentioned, and I was like, okay, this is really cool and important. Well, so Ross Hudgens is looking at the SERPs and seeing the same thing for best everything now, like best CRM, even some really weird ones like best humans, which is very problematic for a whole bunch of reasons. But it's an interesting new rich snippet that appears where it gives you this information of what's considered the best, and then see the drop down, you see more information about this entity. It just highlights how important this idea of barnacle SEO is, how you really do want your product, service, or your name on these lists, these best of, especially if they're the best list for whatever your category is. Because whether or not you are on these lists, it's going to impact if you show up in these rich snippets. You need to be on 2 to 3 of these, from what I've seen, looking at these lists, in order to show up in the rich snippet. And basically it's Google here's the best, here's what it is. And most users don't really think, they don't do that much deeper dive research. I mean, some do obviously, but when they're just looking for best blank, they take that at face value a lot of times. I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. Anyway, cool snippet nonetheless. Look up some of the other best sections. If you see any that are super cringy, leave them in the comments. I'm a little curious. Okay, so Semrush has so much data at their disposal, and they do a fantastic job of analyzing and surfacing insights across the internet when it comes to organic search. Marcus Tober and the team put out their annual State of Search report, which looks back on a ton of different trends from 2022, and it is fascinating. A lot of takeaways. You can see 2021, 22, 2022, so many algorithm updates. Beyond just the core updates, we're seeing reviews updates, helpful content updates, you name it, massive updates. We've seen a lot of different changes in search intent. Volatility is explosive. Categories are, industries are getting back to where they were from the pre-pandemic levels, but still a lot of fluctuations there. They give insights into click-through rates, organic search clicks versus ads and rich snippets and zero-click SERPs. Across the board, it's a great report, and it's really interesting to look at these high-level insights and take from it for what you will. But ultimately, the landscape is changing. Search is changing more frequently, more rapidly. It makes our industry exciting, but it makes it that much more difficult. I'd love to see what was the most interesting insight for you. So let me know in the comments. But great state of search report. I highly recommend you check out what Semrush did. So a few months ago, the team at Aira, Patty Mugen, and the Women in Tech SEO with Rija Buwali, their whole community put together an incredible state of technical SEO report. Last week, they held a webinar kind of going through all of the results and where we're at now and what it was like and what they're thinking. So great contributors, Paige Hobarth, Roxana Stingu, Crystal Carter, JJ Nato Picasso, Cavi Cardos, all joined in and were just sharing their opinion. Really cool video to watch. Enjoy hearing their perspectives. And obviously a lot is changing. A lot has happened in AI since this report came out. So always cool to stay abreast of what's going on and appreciate that whole community. So check out that video and download the report, The State of Technical SEO. So cool. Speaking of tech SEO, so you remember last week there was that whole, brouhaha around whether technical SEO was dead because Google was kind of changing the page experience system into a signal. Well, I hopped on a LinkedIn Live with my boys Zach Chahalis and Michael Glavik of iPullRank, and we talked about, I got a kick out of making the title "Shut Up, Tech SEO Isn't Dead," which is obviously how we feel, because there's so much more to tech SEO than just page speed. So we chatted for an hour. Definitely check it out. It's up on the site. We talked all about, setting up tests for technical SEO, page migration or website migrations, redesigns. We talked about the future of tech SEO and AI and what role that is going to play. All in all, it was a great conversation with the SEOs at iPullRank. So that's available. And we're doing this every week now on LinkedIn Live on Thursdays around 4 p.m. So if you ever want to join us and talk AI content strategy in a couple weeks, next week we're talking Exact Science, our rank tracking tool where you can look at your content relevancy score, tracked by pixel height, all sorts of cool jazz. So that's a fun, informal, casual conversation every Thursday. Join us. Join us. Super under the radar, really cool SEO blog post by Thomas Frankiel on the Funnel blog, talking all about setting realistic SEO goals and some different methods you can do to do that appropriately. Now, he points out a lot of it depends on your website, on your competitors, on your past performance, on your planned activity, but he breaks down the 3 methods around year-over-year goals, month-over-month goals, and then incremental month goals. And he thinks about it in the context of ROI and traffic and rankings and all that jazz. Really cool. He includes a Google Sheets that you can use, and actually it's going to be doing a future blog post on how you can get that into Looker Data Studio. But all in all, a really helpful post to think about SEO goal setting, which can be kind of tricky because it really is so dependent on your specific situation and forecasting to some extent, which isn't always reliable. Anyway, worth the read. Check it out. Well done, Thomas. About a month ago, Holly Miller Anderson wrote this great article on Search Engine Land all about how to write a great ticket for SEO for your developers. She's back. This one talks all about the difference between an SEO manager and an SEO product manager. And there are some significant differences. While there are some overlap in terms of skill sets, one of the biggest things is the SEO product manager has to really understand the process for development at the company. They need to be inside that process, writing up tickets, talking to developers, speaking that language, and owning the product in a way that an SEO manager might not have to. She breaks down, she talks about like the SEO skills matrix that Tom Critchlow writes about, talks about different salary types and specific skill sets of knowing to work in agile methodology, lean, scrum, etc. Ultimately, she provides some more resources, but it's something to think about that it is a different skill set for an SEO product manager that's responsible specifically for the product and the SEO rollout there and the website, etc., and just an SEO manager. Not just, because obviously that's an important role as well, but they're different specializations. Great article, Holly. SchemaZoo. So we've talked about entity SEO in the past, like how you can actually use structured data and schema to say, oh, this page mentions this entity, talks about that entity. Well, Nadim Hadadim put together SchemaZoo, which is you put in your text, right? And then it spits out the JSON schema with those mentions that you can then put in your site and communicate to Google semantically with entity SEO what entities are mentioned in your page on your website. That's so cool. It makes it really easy. Free tool. Way to go, Nadim. Appreciate it. Y'all should check it out. And also, as always, exact science, rank tracking, ChatGPT enabled keyword segmentation. We have OrbitWise, which is getting your content relevancy score, making sure that the content on your website is actually relevant to your target keyword, like mathematically, like in the eyes of Google. Check out all of those tools. We got the free trial on Exact Science. OrbitWise is free. Super cool. Boom, bang, boom. That's it. Another episode of the SEO Weekly in the books. Thank you so much for watching. I genuinely appreciate it. My name is Garrett Sussman of iPullRank. And as always, if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us a like. Leave me a comment. Tell me about the future of AI and SEO and what you think and all that jazz. Otherwise, I'll see you. Enjoy Google I/O on Wednesday. Keep your eyes peeled for my interview with Barry Schwartz, and I will catch you next week.